Hi, I'm Stephen Hendry, and today I'm with the chairman of World Snooker, Steve Dawson, who's been with Matchroom for 40 years. I've got a unique position, looking at snooker from the inside and the outside. I've been talking to players and fans alike, and I'm really interested to see what Steve has to say about the future of the sport. Okay, Steve, you can tell us a bit about your background, obviously, with Matchroom.
Yeah, so I've worked for 40 years for Matchroom. I think it's man and boy. But that's probably doesn't really say it all. I've overseen a huge growth in the Matchroom group, which started out as a £100 company in Romford, and is probably now worth close on $1 billion. Yes, I mean, during those 40 years, clearly I've overseen this massive transformation and into creating what is probably now one of the best sports promotion companies in the world. And the last 10 years, I've been, prior to becoming chairman when Barry retired, I was CEO for World Snooker, and I was instrumental in the acquisition of World Snooker from the association.
So what would you say are the benefits from working with Barry so closely for so long?
Working under a legend like Barry, with all his achievements, and he's such a creative mind. Certainly in terms, for an accountant, he's actually got an amazing creative side to his business, and I think a lot of that's rubbed off on me. But I'm never going to be the same as Barry.
Who is?
No, who could be? But I find I get on very well with him when we do meet.
So what would you say is your personality traits for taking on this sport?
So as far as I'm concerned, I like to think that I'm approachable. I'm a collaborator. That's how I work. I listen to people. I'm approachable. I'm accessible. I much rather deal with issues outside the media than inside.
Face-to-face.
Face-to-face communication for me is the key to this.
Right.
I'm not going to be in your face like Barry is, because that's just not my character.
Of course. And obviously Matchroom, a huge history with snooker, obviously with Steve and stuff, and Barry with the snooker club. So are you a snooker fan yourself, or are you?
Yeah, total fan. Yeah, I mean my sports were football in the early days. Actually, I had to give up because I had a cruciate ligament injury. Right. I play club cricket and golf to a certain extent, but snooker's certainly from a business perspective has always been my sport. Right. In terms of playing the game, I'm not a great player, but I actually got an amazing technique. I had Terry Griffiths. I mean, actually, he's not too well at the moment. I think Terry's here, but he. Well, I helped him out when we used to manage him. We went to go down to Lanathley when he's doing his new snooker club down there, and he gave me some lessons in exchange for the help. And the conclusion we came to was that I'm never going to play enough to be any good. Okay. But if I had a good technique, I could always be having a bad day. Right. And I've carried that theory through all the sports that I've played.
So you're involved in the makeup of the board, and tell us exactly what you're doing day to day then.
I suppose you'd describe me as a sort of executive chairman. Right. I really don't want to be an executive chairman. I just want to let the team do the business. But certainly over the last year or two, we've had a real reorganisation of the board. We brought in some new faces, some new people, younger thoughts, lots of ideas, and it's certainly on the commercial side we've had a big change in emphasis, where we're now looking at commercial partnerships rather than event sponsorship.
So how would you assess the current state of snooker in 2023?
It's a really healthy condition, actually. We've got rising gate receipts, increased broadcast numbers, we've got new tournaments, and we've got new winners, which actually reinvigorates it. We're very lucky to have China. It's actually a huge market for us, and I think that's an area where we need to be cautious, because clearly we had a scenario where they had lockdown, which was harder and worse than any other country did, and that switched us off, and that we lost that prize money overnight, and that was quite. And actually, I'm very proud of one of the things we did, which actually keep the sport alive during that period.
Yeah. In terms of, you just mentioned gate receipts there. When I go to some tournaments, not the BBC ones, I think, take care of themselves because everyone knows where they are at what time of year. They're always full. But a couple of times, people don't even know the tournament's on. So in terms of gate receipt, that's surely a problem, because they seem to start the week quite empty, and then as people know it's there, it graduates. So I think it's in my time as a player, it's always been a problem where tournaments maybe haven't been sort of publicised or marketed as well as they should.
Marketing of events has changed massively over the last 5 years, certainly with social media and data.
Yeah.
We are building, and we have a very large database now where we identify and target people who are interested in snooker.
Right.
So we will target them online.
Yeah. I'll give you, sorry to interrupt you, sure. In Hull last year, some of the TV people, when we arrived, they were in a snooker club in Hull on a Sunday night before it started, and chatting to people, and they were saying, "Why are you here?" They say, "Well, we're working. There's a snooker tournament starting tomorrow."
Certainly, in relation to Hull, this was post-pandemic, and clearly, we didn't do our job right. Since then, we brought in a new marketing communications team, and that's actually shown that all our events, certainly this part of the season, are way up on last year's figures. We've taken that feedback in relation to Hull, and now have signed a deal at Manchester Central, and it's a 3-year deal, and ticket sales are going massively well there now.
Are there enough events, or are there too many events? Is there room for more?
You can't win on this one, can you? Because last year everyone was crying out for more events.
Yeah.
I think there's clearly space in the calendar. Wherever there's space in the calendar, we're going to put new events. I mean,
you say there's space in the calendar, but obviously the scheduling is quite tight. The last sort of period, was there 4 or 5 weeks in a row they were playing. So where would you fit them in?
I mean, the difficulty here clearly is that the players that are winning want to carry on playing. I mean, you ask Judd. I mean, he's winning like 100 grand every week virtually.
Yeah.
So, what do you do? Do you decide not to do events to give the players a week's break between 2 tournaments? No, clearly that would be nuts, because we've got 129 players on the tour who actually are enjoying the earning opportunities. They like travelling and they like to earn money. That's what they are, they're professionals. And clearly, players are not obliged to play in every single event.
Yeah.
So if they want to take an event out, if they're feeling stressed or injured or whatever, take time out. And in reality, what happens is it affects the semi-finalists and the finalists. And we make provision for them in the next tournament. So we give them an extra day or 2 days to travel. And it's obviously very tight in China. Certain locations are very remote.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a fair system at the moment. The players that are winning want to carry on earning.
How would you compare snooker to other sports? Do we underperform against them or overperform against them?
Yeah, I think we perform pretty well against them, bearing the size of the sport. When you've got to think about sports like golf, which has a huge revenue generator from the equipment market. So if you were to look at golf equipment, there are probably 5 or 6 manufacturers, retailers, who are probably worth $1 billion each. Now, that generates a huge amount of revenue that you can use to develop sports, even commercial partners.
Yeah.
And also, actually, it gives people first-hand experience of how difficult the sport is.
Right.
And that hooks them into the broadcast and engages with them.
Yeah.
Whereas snooker, if you compare that with snooker, a snooker table is a very expensive bit of equipment. Not many people can do that. Not many people actually can feel how difficult that sport is. They look at it on TV, oh, that's easy. Yeah.
What you talk about commercial partners? Why do you think? I mean, my career as well. Why has there never been sort of blue chip companies sponsoring snooker? Why is it? You look at golf, you look at it's all like it's snooker's. Why do you think that is?
I think it's always been the case that the gambling companies have paid the most money.
Yeah.
Snooker does have attractions to blue chip companies, but only where they face China.
Can you talk us through the current commercial opportunities and challenges for WST and the tour?
We've recently brought in Peter Wright, who's our new commercial director, and we've got a change in emphasis now. What we're looking for is partners that will partner with us throughout the whole season across various events, and not on individual events. It's very much in early stages now, but we are getting a huge amount of feedback that companies now know more about our product, what we can deliver, and how it works.
Obviously, golf is played all over the world, where snooker is sort of, at the moment, limited to UK, Germany, China. So it would mean snooker move into other countries, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of work is being done in territories outside the UK, developing academies. We've got a Q school now in the Far East, which is directly delivering new talent into the tour. We've got an opportunity now for players to actually join the tour and become players on the tour by qualifying in their backyard. This gives us opportunities to expand into new territories that otherwise have been quiet territories for snooker. Can we call this a world snooker tour if we're only in the UK, China and Germany? What's the plans? Can you tell us anything about other countries we're going to be visiting soon? Yeah, it's difficult to be precise, because obviously until such time these deals are done, it's hard to announce. But certainly we're looking to increase the number of tournaments we have in mainland Europe. We're probably going to, one of our plans is to increase our number of events by at least 5 or 6 over the next 4 to 5 years. And that growth will come in Asia and Middle East and mainland Europe. So we talked about scheduling before. Where these are obviously going to have to be fitted in somewhere then. I mean, sure. Be going into the summer? Sure, absolutely. Yeah. The season, 12-month tour. Yeah, no reason why not. There'll always be a natural break after the World Championships because you've got the qualifying Q school and stuff. What other regions are we looking at then? I mean, Barry mentioned the Middle East, possible? Yeah, Middle East is, as everyone's saying at the moment, a massive market for us. Yeah. And so we're very close to finalising something there, but watch this space. Are you happy with the current broadcast agreements and formats? Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky to have BBC, ITV and Eurosport. In actual fact, it's quite interesting when you look at the BBC statistics. I mean, there's a general deterioration on linear broadcast on BBC. Every year, the rates drop about, the actual viewing levels drop about 5%. Okay. But snooker is bucking that trend. It's probably level, but that in a sense is a gain, which is very unusual. And at the same time, what we're seeing, their red button numbers are at record levels last year. So it's still hugely popular on BBC, so it's a massive asset for us. So you can, for the foreseeable future, you can see us continuing with BBC and ITV, as obviously Eurosport as well. So absolutely, yeah. Because BBC is obviously, for the Triple Crown events, it's very important, isn't it? Yeah, massively important. And you know, they're great partners. We work well together. I mean, this brings me sort of the elephant in the room, the players' contracts. Obviously, it's quite restrictive in terms of they have to play in the tour and they're not allowed to play. Sure. We've had instances, obviously, with Macau and things like that. Do you think, obviously, those players' contracts were brought in a while ago? Was it before the sort of maybe the opportunities of the China have arisen? Do you think it's time to sort of maybe relax a little bit and let the players? I think I would disagree with your contention that it's a bad contract in any sense. It's actually a very open contract in terms of other sporting contracts. It's still a big no-no then for, say, a tournament in China for players to go out a week before and try and earn some money before they play in the actual tournament. That's still deemed as a harmful thing to the game. It depends on the circumstances entirely. It depends where the event is and how close it is to another event. For instance, if we had an event in Shanghai, we wouldn't want to. Well, that's common sense. Yeah, you'd hope the players would have a bit of common sense. So we've sold a product to a promoter, and all of a sudden, the players are all going out and playing in a rival hotel or whatever city. Okay. I'm going to go through some of the issues that players
have raised and discussed. Venues, do you think they're good enough?
Choosing venues is a difficult thing in snooker.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, the requirements we have are very specific.
Yeah.
You can't just stick it in a small theatre. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have large areas,
Mm-hmm.
and sports centres provide that. But we do accept that we need to upgrade those facilities constantly and look to move the events to bigger venues and better locations with better facilities.
I go to some of the venues, you sit in the and they're pretty soulless places. I mean, I remember. I mean, I'm sort of reliving the glory days of tobacco sponsored and everything. The lounges we used to sit in and everything was like, you know, really nice. You'd want to go in and sit, but these places, I mean, I wouldn't want to go and sit in some of these rooms. Sure. It's like they're pretty cold.
Yeah, sure. I don't think that's fair criticism right now. I think well, actually, how many sports leisure centres do we use?
I'm just going with the qualifiers.
Oh, qualifiers.
That's where I am, right at the bottom.
Sorry.
Some of these venues are. But I've always thought, would it be viable for World Snooker to have their own purpose-built venue for qualifiers? So the tables would always be there. Yep. There could be a restaurant there. Could be relaxing lounges, maybe even rooms for the players.
We did, of course, do that, didn't we? We had the EIS in Sheffield, and
But that wasn't your purpose-built.
Yeah, effectively it was.
Right.
Yeah, but we ended up having to create these partitions, and the players actually didn't want to go there in the end.
Travel time and cost, too far, too expensive, obviously, is a common theme. Obviously, I think China's obviously quite far to go. Sure. I don't know how I remember my day, flights and everything were paid for, and then obviously that, I think it was a decision to take the money out of that and put it onto the prize money.
Yeah, that was before our time, I think. But there's no doubt the costs of travel have actually risen tremendously. But the prize money level for the first round loser in the final stages is usually enough to cover more than cover their travel costs. Yeah. They generally get free hotels. Yeah,
and I suppose that would be another reason for players wanting. We've talked about it's not possible 3-4 tournaments in China at the same time, which would obviously save a lot on their travel.
Yeah, except you'd have to do qualifiers out there.
Yeah, it's not viable to take. I mean, you don't want to be taking 64 128 players out to China. Yeah,
that's tough.
What would you say that the prize money, the tournaments in China, the prize money seems to be good, but the tournaments in the UK don't seem to be going up that much?
Yeah, well, certainly the prize money. It's difficult to compare because obviously we've just been through the COVID period where we were actually pretty lucky and did well to get our events out.
Yeah.
Every year we review the prize money levels. The Chinese levels are clearly higher because it's a slightly different model.
Right.
Because where you've got local Chinese promoters with the CBSA, they're paying for that prize money.
The World Championship is obviously huge. You get $500,000 for winning it. There's an argument that I don't think anyone's arguing about having $500,000 for winning the World Championship. That's very nice, but there's an argument for because of the point situation. Is too much in regards to basically the World Champion could take a year off and still be up there.
Yeah, but this is all about headlining. This is our premier event, and it needs and deserves a big prize money level.
Yeah. I don't think any player would argue with the first prize. I think it's the way that works with the points. If there's too much of a sort of comfort zone or something where the guy that's world champion is basically there for 2 years in the top.
Yeah, but currently we seed the world champion through to the second seed in all tournaments anyway. But our feeling is that the world championships needs to have headline levels of prize money at that level. Clearly, if you're a purist, you may want to change the ranking system, but from our perspective, we think it's simpler for the general public to understand pounds equals points.
How do you think the communications between yourself and the players is going? Do you think it needs more or less? Maybe too many, you could do without some public statements from players, you'd rather come face to face?
Sure. I mean, one of the most frustrating things for me is that when I get calls from my commercial team and they say, oh, we're talking nicely, but actually they've just listened to a player making comments, is it still okay? I mean, how frustrating is that? We've got people whose full-time jobs, and ultimately, the whole business is reliant on those, on those people being able to do their job. So it's just super obvious to me that players need to understand when they're making statements, they need to check themselves. If they're making something that could be potentially damaging, they should just sit back and say, no, I'm not going to say that. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about something else and save it. Straight after that game, they can pick the phone up to me.
I was going to say, you said you're approachable, so they've
got my phone number.
Yeah, it's quite easy to speak to you.
Just tell me what, and I think I'm a reasonable guy. I think I'm accessible at any time of the day. That's what I've been doing all my whole life, and everyone will get listened to. They may not like the answers sometimes, but in reality, we're there to be talked to, and in that way, we've got a scenario where the livelihoods of all the players are being looked after.
Okay, we're going to look at the future of the sport. What needs to happen to take the sport to even higher echelons, to move it forward even more?
I think where the biggest opportunities arise are through collaboration between the players and the tour. I think we need to get players to think about their own personal character and their brand. There's nothing I'd like to see more than players being sponsored by major brands, doing the popular TV shows, not being able to walk down the road without being recognised.
Yeah, as it was in the 80s, I suppose, 80s and 90s. Yeah.
In your case, I mean, I was with Steve Davis the other day, and he's, we were in the bar having a drink, and he said, and the barman said, 6 times isn't paying for his drinks.
I know.
But that was 30 years ago.
I know.
He was, and they seem to have lasted. And I mean, your situation as well. I mean, how do you find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't know what you do to. You look at the players on TV, and all the logos are Chinese, pretty much. Yeah. There's no, and I don't know what you do to change that. Yeah. Where companies want to be involved in sponsoring players that are UK based. Sure. I don't know how you do that.
Sure. I mean, in reality, the blue chip companies are not sponsoring as much as they used to.
What are WST's objectives over the next 5 years?
We spent quite a bit of time when I became as chairman talking through our strategy for success. And essentially, what we're looking at is 4 areas. One, prize money of a minimum of 20 million within the next 3 to 5 years. 2, a broader range of international events with not too many in a particular territory, so spreading our risk in that sense. What
would you, what's your view on, or is there any talk about the future of the Crucible, for example? Because a big thing, I for one, because I've played, I have so much success. I love the place, but I know a lot of players seem to think it's maybe had its time, and they want to move somewhere for like Saudi Arabia and have 2 million for the winner, but it's away from the Crucible. I mean, would it be an idea to have, like at the British Open Golf, have 4 or 5 venues, and like St Andrews, you go back to the Crucible one year and it'd be like an amazing thing?
Yeah, I mean, we've just been talking about not moving events around
too
much. And now
I know, but it's people always, every time we come to the World Championship, everyone's talking, should it move to somewhere bigger?
I think well, the straight position is clearly we're under contract with Sheffield, and the ball is very much in their court.
Right.
So we're meeting with them regularly, trying to listen to their ideas, because I think we appreciate, whilst the Crucible is great atmospherically, it's getting about old and tired.
Because Barry wants them to build a new one, doesn't he?
Well, that would be the perfect solution, wouldn't it?
Can we talk about dress code? What is the plans for the future? I'm a traditionalist, I'm not going to lie. It always felt like you put a bow tie and you're going to work. That was my uniform. I do enjoy some of the casual stuff. I wasn't a fan of in Bolton. I think it was a bit dartsy, the t-shirts. But I do agree that tournaments, some should be different. What's your opinion and what's the plans?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a tradition as well, Stephen. And I think certainly in overseas markets, it's actually a bit of a USP for us.
Okay.
I think that whole image is something we sell very highly in China.
Yes, of course.
And I think if we started changing that, I think could have a detrimental effect on us commercially. So having said that, Yeah, I do believe that in certain events that there's opportunities to loosen the dress code. A little bit too formal. We are living in, and we need to attract younger people.
Yeah.
And to that end, yes, we're very close to announcing a new deal with a major brand that hopefully we can use a more modern approach to the wearing of the snooker uniform.
So can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a new global sports brand which I think everyone will recognise the name of. And what they're going to do is they're going to work with players and talk to them about how they want to see and use their less formal clothing in the snooker scenario.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't let players wear what they want, because I've seen the dress sense of most of the snooker players and it'd be horrific. Yeah, so we're talking about your objectives the next 5 years. What guarantees can you give that they will be met?
Yeah, the other objectives we've got relate to engagement with fans, learning more about our fan base, because we have a huge number of passive followers of the sport. We need to know more about them. What we want to do is create venues with atmospheres like Ali Pali, the Tempodrome even in Germany, and every event should be like that.
Yeah. Is there a move to like Ali Pali is I mean, it's phenomenal what's been done with that tournament in terms of the VIP seating, it's places like the Crucible. Obviously you can't really fit that sort of stuff in, so is that the reason to move to find these great venues to do that in?
Yeah, then you get into this argument about the traditionalist and wants to stay with, because it's,
of which I am for the Crucible.
I have to admit. Where are you?
Well, I would hate to see it leave the Crucible, but I understand, you know, sports have got to evolve at some stage, and that's why I think if it has to move away, to have this thing where you have every 4 or 5, you could possibly go back there and have it as an occasion,
or use it for another event.
Absolutely, possibly. So, when you talk about objectives that need to be met over the next 5 years, or you want to achieve, what part do the players play in that?
Well,
what's their involvement?
It's pointless us having any objectives unless we can carry the players with us. Absolutely fundamental. The players need to understand that and buy into it.
How, this is a bit off the wall question, how important is Ronnie O'Sullivan to snooker? And how, listen, there's lots of fantastic players in the game. I watch the game, the standards have gone up so much, but if he was to stop tomorrow, would that be a big thing?
Clearly Ronnie is a massive draw in the game. Cannot deny that whatsoever. But we have had situations and circumstances where he's not, for whatever reason, played in the World Championships. And to be perfectly honest with you, the numbers have still stacked up.
Okay.
Some of the peaks are not quite the same. So we love Ronnie. We want Ronnie to carry on forever if we can. When he decides to retire, which will happen one day, we will have another Ronnie O'Sullivan come through the ranks. That's what we want. That's what we want to see.
I think we're starting to see more young players coming through. I think there was a stage where we wondered where the next sort of all the young players were going to come through from, so they are coming through, the likes of Stan Moody, and also the women's game is just getting stronger and stronger. Yeah,
without doubt. And of course we're very proud that we did the mixed doubles last year. It's a huge success. Quite an interesting dynamic with the players actually. Actually, have you played much mixed doubles?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, no. It was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because you saw Ronnie a little bit out of his comfort zone.
Yeah, very
much. Not wanting
so,
to let Rianne down, which was fabulous. But obviously the women's game is obviously a very important thing for us. Obviously we've just seen Mink recently win her first round match and narrowly lose to Michael White in the second round. And it won't be long before they're winning games time after time. Then of course you've got, as you say, Stan Moody, and there's a whole host of other players who are actually at the standard now. Yeah. So these plans in the next 5 years to raise the profile of sport even more, how important are the fans, the snooker fans, in that process? Massively important. I mean, anyone who's been to the World Championships or the Masters and have felt the little hairs on the back of your neck go up, I mean, those are, it's just absolutely everything. Clearly, we are increasing our fan numbers as well. We're increasing our sophistication in terms of how we communicate with them, how we identify who they are, what they want from us, and that can only be a cumulative effect, which is going to improve our levels of audience going forward.
Yeah, 'cause I think the players appreciate the fans as well, because the top players, the sort of marquee players, they love that atmosphere and they play their best under that atmosphere. So that's why the fans, I think, are so important, right?
Tell me, what is it about snooker players that they don't want to acknowledge the crowd? They're very shy about putting their arms up in the air.
I know. It's unusual. You watch tennis and every point they're giving it this.
I know.
But if a snooker player,
great,
if a snooker player does something like Peter Ebdon came on the scene and started giving it all this, and all the players were thinking, "What is he doing? Like, we don't like this." But I understand that, like, maybe if the players gave it a bit more, like Sean was doing at the World Championship a couple of years ago, and the fans were loving it.
Yeah. No, I just think it's a whole dimension that's missing from our sport, because it's hard to see their characters when they're playing snooker.
So Steve Dawson wants the players to give it more, show more emotion.
Totally, yeah, why not? They're not going to get fined or anything.
So thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you.
And all the very best with all your objectives and everything. As a snooker fan, a snooker player, I hope the game just grows.
It's really exciting times, and we're all really up for the challenge. I've got a great board. They're doing a fantastic job. They're so dedicated. And we'll come back in a little while and tell you what we've done.